What's up, everyone? Matt here with Down Once More. It is time to talk about my thoughts on episode 7, Left Behind, of The Last of Us. A couple things before we dive into the episode. One, I'm on like week 2 of fighting a head cold, so apologies that I sound like crap. Number two, there's currently a thunderstorm going on here, so apologies if there's some background noise. I actually watched this episode sitting on the floor trying to comfort my dog who is terrified of thunderstorms. So that was my viewing experience for this episode. Number three, this is my second attempt at recording this. I thought I had a fantastic episode, and for some reason, as I was editing, apparently when I was recording, it just stopped capturing audio halfway through. So that was fun. Hopefully, I don't have to deal with that this time. So, if this is your first time watching one of these reviews, welcome. Every week after the episode ends, I come on and record my initial thoughts, gut reaction to the episode. I do not spoil anything that has not happened yet in the show that took place in the games, but I will cover some of the things, some Easter eggs from what I remember of the video games to where we're at in this series now. I actually went through and replayed the game right before the series premiered. I think I finished it actually between week 1 and 2. So a lot of the stuff is fresh in my mind. I am by no means an expert. The HBO does a Last of Us podcast that has some fantastic behind the scenes. My discussion is going to be based on what I know, remember of the games, and some of the after show discussion that they show on HBO. So, first things first, Storm Reed in this episode was fantastic as Riley. The only thing that I'm really familiar with her in before this was as Gia in Euphoria, Rue's sister, and she absolutely crushed that role, which is also a very emotional role that she plays in that character. If you've watched that series, then you know she captured kind of this tough, brave, strong teenager, almost 17, she mentions on here in the show, that is going through the turmoil of being with her best friend, Ellie, wanting to fight Fedra, and wanting to her duty now to the Fireflies since she escaped Fedra. This episode opens up with Ellie and Joel in the basement of this house in an abandoned town. Ellie trying to patch Joel up. Well, and by patch him up, she's just throwing like papers and stuff on his gushing open wound. Joel tells Ellie to leave, that she needs to go find Tommy. And we almost think for a second, I mean, if we're thinking logically, she's not going to, but they make it seem as if she is going to go and leave Joel. And then goes to flashbacks. Ellie's training with Fedra in the facility that we've referenced before. That's basically their orphanage that just turns people into soldiers, right? And so she's dealing with a bully, fights them, is talking to the captain that's telling her, "You're smarter than this. You should be an officer," trying to push her into officer training. She says she wants to go that path. And then that night, Riley breaks in to, I'm doing quotes, I was doing it lower than the camera shows, breaks into her room to get her to come escape, go on an adventure with her. Riley had been her roommate that's been gone for 3 weeks. That coincides with when Ellie started acting out more at Fedra to the authority. And that's actually where the video game DLC kind of picks up in that story. So the video game, the key difference there, Joel and Ellie are in a mall. After they left the university, after Joel was injured there, um, they hole up in a mall and Ellie goes to try to find some first aid materials, equipment for Joel. So it's come with a lot of gameplay elements of going, searching all the different stores. You see some really cool stories. There's like a military helicopter that's crashed, and you can find notes of that story of survivors from that and their battles with infected. And that's really neat to see in the game. But that jumping back and forth and those parallels between the mall in the present and the mall in the past doesn't work as well narratively when you have a 45-minute episode of a TV show to pack this into, right? So if you're going through a 5-6 hour gameplay thing, then absolutely you want to have more variety and more action going on there. Here, we really want to spend time and focus. The key thing here is Ellie's first experience with loss, right? That's what Craig Mazin talks about at the end. I'm jumping way ahead, so there's some of the brain fog NyQuil here. This could be kind of scatterbrained, so I apologize. So we jump into the end, how after Riley and Ellie are bitten and Ellie's reacting by breaking things and all violently in anger, and Riley's just calm. It's because Riley's experienced loss before, right? She mentions in this episode to Ellie that when Ellie asks if she'd ever seen dead bodies before, and she says her parents. So we know that Riley either firsthand or came upon her parents dying, being killed, infected, what have you. We don't get into the details, the nitty gritty with that, right? So we know she has experienced loss before she's experienced death. This, the losing of Riley right after they kind of found each other and became so vulnerable with each other. This is the first real experience with loss that Ellie's dealing with, her best friend and everything. So we get this emotional story that is the key. And Neil Druckmann said before, the key theme of The Last of Us is love and what love makes you do and how you react to it, right? So we have gotten in almost every single episode of this, we've gotten a different love story and heartbreak. Episode 1, we have Joel and Sarah. Episode 2, we get Joel and Tess. Episode 3, we get Bill and Frank. Episode 4, not as much because it's more of a setup episode. Episode 5, we get Henry and Sam. Episode 6, we get the love story of Joel and Tommy reuniting and everything with that, right? And then this episode, we are getting Ellie and Riley. So they really adapted the Left Behind DLC from the games. So many of these things are almost shot for shot, line for line, word for word. We have them writing the carousels together. We have the pun book, the volume 2 that Riley gifts Ellie. We have the Halloween store, the masks, the werewolf mask and the clown mask that Ellie and Riley are dancing in are almost identical to the ones in the game and the scenes and how it plays out in the game. We get the dialogue and conversations about I think a lot of the puns are the same ones from the game. I could be wrong on that. We also earlier in the episode had when Ellie and Riley are escaping the Fedra building. Again, sorry for jumping around. And they're almost spotted. Riley says it could have been bad. It could have been another 7-Eleven situation. And Ellie says, no thanks. I'd like to keep my other eyebrow in one piece. Thank you. So from what I remember in the game, we don't get a story of why Ellie has the scar on her eyebrow. I mentioned in an earlier review that she has the scar in the game. She has it here in the show. So it's a little alluding to it. That's on another adventure Riley and Ellie had gone off on and escaped on. So I thought that was neat. We get another one of those scenes of Ellie that I've referenced in other of my reviews of Ellie just being in awe of these things that seem normal every day to us, right? Like the thought of an airplane when her and Joel see the wrecked one in episode 2 or beginning of episode 3, whichever one that is. No, it's beginning of episode 3 when they see the wrecked airplane and she's just in awe of that. And then here we get it with the electric stairs, the escalator, how she's just giddy. And I like that the show's giving us more of these scenes of Ellie just being a kid, not being as having to be as tough and portray that tough exterior. We get to more character building and emotion. And I feel like we're getting more depth to the character of Ellie, especially in the show versus the games. And I mentioned it last week in my review on Joel too. We're getting a much more vulnerable version of Joel in the show than the game, as he's opening up to Tommy of his fears of failure and loss and everything. So, um, we get in this episode, we get one of the surprises is Riley brings Ellie to an arcade. In the game, the arcade is a key thing, but in the game, the arcade doesn't have any power for some reason. I don't remember what it is, if it's on a different circuit or just the game is broken. In the game, obviously, they can't use Mortal Kombat 2. It is a different game. I referenced that before. I don't remember the name of the game, but the character's name is Angel Knives. In the game, in this DLC, Riley, because the game is broken, Ellie's bummed and wants to play it because they've talked about it. They've read about this character in their comics and everything. Riley has Ellie close her eyes, and the screen just shows Ellie's face and some controls with directions and button pushes. And you see reflections as if it's a reflection from the arcade screen on there. And it's a really cool sequence in the game. I highly recommend one, just playing the games. It is a fantastic game. It's frustrating. You're gonna die so many times to the clickers, but a great game all around. They just did a remastered version on PS5. I think it's coming to PC soon. So highly recommend checking that out, or just watching the sequence on YouTube. It's a really neat sequence to see. Riley's just narrating the different moves and what to do on it, and it's really cool. I get here why you want to have them kind of playing with each other and having some more dialogue and having some more action around that. And I think it was Neil Druckmann in the after show was saying that kind of the parallel for this was kids skipping school, what they would do when they're skipping school for the day, right? So it's they're looking at the Victoria's Secret store and having the conversations there. Um, and that's when we kind of get the first flirty crush comment, right? They're looking at the mannequins and their lingerie, and Riley's like, I just imagining what you would look like that in it. Kind of says that confused way, not flirting as much. But Storm Reed was talking at the end in the after show about how that's kind of the first feeling Ellie out, and this crush in this apocalyptic or post-apocalyptic um, world that they're living in, just kind of feeling each other out, not knowing where everyone is. You get a lot of Ellie's kind of loving, longing looks at Riley when they're on the carousel, and um, it's a beautiful love story between these teenagers that we're getting here, and just building connection. How this show can have you build connection to a character in one episode, like the character of Riley, that you can empathize with them, you can see what they're going through, you can see that process, that conflict, that torment in their mind, and then building out the character of like Frank, especially in episode 3, because we don't see Frank except his corpse hanging and a letter he wrote in the video games. So Neil Druckmann, Craig Mazin, the whole team have been doing fantastic in adapting and building out these characters. Um, One kind of Easter egg that I'll reference from the game, before Riley gives Ellie the pun book, Ellie's trying to guess what the gifts are, and she mentions water pistols. In the game, that's a big thing. They had water pistols that were confiscated from them at Fedra training, and Riley had stolen them back and brought them. And you have a water fight in the store, and that's when the infected actually come upon you, is after that. So the dialogue is also almost identical to what they have in the Halloween store about Ellie asking Riley not to go, and her saying okay that she's gonna stay with Ellie, and then them sharing the kiss and everything right before everything comes crashing down when the infected comes into the store. So I I'm not gonna say a ton more about this. Um, Besides at the end when they're infected and they're sitting there, and they're having the discussion, which I also think is adapted almost word for word from the game, where Riley's talking about the option two instead of just saying the quick way out is that they just keep going until the infection takes them over, whether it's 2 minutes or 2 days. She doesn't want to give up on that time. And then she says, we can be poetic and shit and lose our minds together. And so that's kind of where this episode leaves you right before going back to Ellie sewing Joel up and kind of showing that she stayed there for him. And Craig Mazin said in the after show that Ellie's not just leaving Joel and going to Tommy to do her own thing. She can't just leave him because Riley didn't walk away from her. Riley didn't give up on her when they were bit. They wanted to stick together and live it out. And so that's what she's doing with Joel now. And so that was the parallel that they pulled in the show. So I thought, once again, a great episode from the team. I'm not sure. I didn't look it up who directed and who shot this episode, but the scene where it pans out from the arcade and goes down the hall into the doll store, and you see the cordyceps and the fungus on the floor, and then the infected on the wall waking up. That scene, like, it just gave me shivers. It looked like it was straight out of a horror movie. It was perfectly executed and shot. So kudos to everyone on this episode. This show is truly one of the best series running right now, if not in all time. So highly recommend. If you're watching this and you stuck through 15 minutes of this, I should hope that you've already seen it. But can't wait for these. We only have 2 episodes left. So make sure you subscribe, you like the video, so you're tuned in as soon as this episode goes live, and then the last 2 episodes go live. I will be recording them right afterwards. I'll be sacrificing watching AEW Revolution next week, so I'll be missing the MJF and Bryan Danielson our Iron Man match, but that's what I do for you 10 viewers. So I hope you enjoyed. Make sure to subscribe, check out on podcast feeds. I do these on my own on here, YouTube exclusives. Also have a whole other podcast I do with my co-host Rayleigh. We talk about musicals, we talk about life, we talk about random bullshit. We got a mini episode dropping on Wednesday. Episodes come out every Wednesday, 6 a.m. Central Time. Subscribe. Those are on YouTube and all the podcast feeds. So make sure, check it out. Appreciate everyone's support. Comment below what your favorite episode of the series has been so far, because I'm not sure if I can pick it. I think it might be episode 5 for me, just because I feel like that one had everything going on. We had some action. We had some great new character stories. We had the heart. We had character building. We had the loss. It was fantastic. But comment below what your favorite was. Tune in next time. Like I said, like, comment, subscribe, share. I'm all for it. I want to grow this page. So if you like what I said even a little bit, share it with your friends. Throw a like on there. Takes 2 seconds. Appreciate everyone tuning in, sticking with me. And as always, don't forget to go down once more. Later.